Pickaxe.
Welcome, cast and crew, to the final episode of our very first miniseries, Fables of Fendraeya, Arcanum. We wanted to start with a quick thank you to everyone who has enjoyed this series so far, as this was almost a Hail Mary for us. We honestly weren't even quite sure if we could make this work, given the time and the resources and everything that we had to put into this. We wanted to provide you with weekly cast party content, and we thought Fables of Fendraeya was an awesome way to flesh out our world and tell stories of past historical events that the cast and crew in the main campaign might not have had the chance to fully experience. We want to thank you all for making this such a success, and to let you know that there will indeed be more Fables of Fendraeya. In 2 weeks, you'll be able to hear our sit-down talk where we recap the entire series, take listener questions from our Discord, ask Jose the burning questions that we've had throughout the whole campaign, and so much more. And, following that, you will hear the first trailer for the brand new Fables of Fendraeya, featuring our new cast and our new story. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. This would not be possible if it weren't for the wonderful support of our community listening to this brand new project of ours. And hey, if you want to continue hearing the highest quality D&D content from the cast and crew, and you'd like to support us even more, head on over to patreon.com/castparty to become an official part of our cast and crew. And now, I'll send it over to Jose for our finale.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Fables of Fendraeya, Arcanum. My name is Jose Polino, or at DM Jose P on TikTok and other fun socials, and I will be your director for today's final episode of Fables of Fendraeya, Arcanum. I am joined by my lovely cast and crew of amazing individuals and fantastic players, so we'll go ahead and begin with Ryan.
Hi, Ryan McManus. I will be playing Rowan Farisle, Half-Light of Selûne, Aspirant of Scythia, Cockblock of Hades, and soon-to-be Bane of Ilionas Thorel. And you can find me on my personals at rye.mcmanus or running the Cast Party socials at Cast Party D&D.
Andy.
Hello, beautiful nerds. My name is Andy, and I will be playing Five, a forged star druid resolute in purpose, confident in his true potential, free of protocols. And you can find me at Mr. Dandy DM on TikTok, YouTube, and on all the other socials.
Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie. I'm emotional. I'm playing Rid, aka Aridina Albrecht, who stole the light, who broke the gates, and who, for the very first time, is her own boss. And you can find me as Cantrip on all the socials I care about, Canne.
And finally, Sin.
Salutations, my name is Sin, and I'll be playing Zue, for once chronicling their own story and aspiring to expose the hidden histories of Fendraeya. Oh, I'm too emotional. Oh, and you can find me on all my socials at sensationally.me, CIN instead of SEN.
So last time we met, you all finally came together and journeyed into the tower in the city of Yggdrasil within Arborea to discover these elements of a much greater story. The boy Sorene, Fernos, Navine, a child plagued with visions of a future. With that, you all found some time together to discuss certain topics, certain things. Rowan, you were visited by Selûne. 5, you were granted the opportunity to witness and bear a pact of friendship and honor with Rowan, hence granting you this new title. Rid and Zue, you both had some time together discussing, in the end of it, what you all fear. which is to take the journey back home, means you have to face one more horror. With that, Fi was gifted this branch of the tree, the Haven Eye, or its true name, Yggdrasil. The branch became a staff where the Thornbeside housed itself on the very top, granting you all passage within the tree itself to journey back home. And you all journeyed to Ilinas' mansion, also known as Yggdrasil. As all of you journeyed through the portal that is this form of planar travel, you were visited by visions, both of people and individuals that you love, but also this boy. There, you all took one final step to Fendraeya. And that is where our story continues. As you all arrive in the courtyard in front of Ilinas' manor within the Veil of the Mist, adorned with those same 4 trees with red leaves that now hold a different resemblance than the first time you ever saw them. But there, sure enough, the tower at the very center of his mansion in this very different pattern, unlike many other mansions and manors you've ever seen in your travels, this one holds a great resemblance to the tower in Arborea. And it all begins to click, one by one. With that, you hear screams coming from the very top of the tower. Lightning and thunder coming from within, muffled by those stone walls. One by one, step onto the courtyard, and the portal behind you that led you to Arborea, like a rip through the very fabric of the universe, closes itself.
I am honestly comforted by the fact that it is closed. Whatever is on this side stays on this side.
Looking up at the tower, it's almost like we never left. The resemblance is uncanny. We should probably attend to those screams. But first, if there's anything we need to get out, if there's anything we need to talk about, we need to do it now and we need to do it quick.
In a lot of our combats, I haven't really been fighting, but I can do some damage. A lot of it just happens to be psychic.
It's something, and that's what we need. I think we're going to need to pull all our punches here. So whatever you can throw, throw it.
Psychic is actually very good because most of my attacks are elemental in nature. I feel like we are covering the field here.
Rid raises her hand tentatively. In that case, and she kind of looks inward for a sec, and then back out. We have an idea, but I think it seems like it's going to be a one-shot thing, and I'm going to have to hit my target on the first try, whoever that target is. So if you got anything that could, like, it was really easy to hit targets with that weird glow around them, so if you got that, anything like that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to stab.
I can do that. I know you never got to meet Selune face to face, but just know she's always with you. Rowan will raise out the lantern. Go ahead. Dive your hand right in. It's the only way you'll really get to touch her from here on out, so...
Isn't it your job to touch her?
I don't know what that means, Raid. Now is not really the time for that. I'm trying to help you.
Rid meaningfully opens her eyes as if staring into the sun and looks into the lantern and puts her hand into it.
As you're used to. And Rowan will cast Warding Bond at 2nd level on Rid for the very first time, getting to feel the embrace and light of Selune. You have a +1 bonus to your AC and saving throws. You have resistance to all damage. Each time you take damage, I take the same amount.
Rid offers her hand out to Rowan in a kind of like hesitant imitation of the tough guy forearm lock that she's seen him and Five do.
Right in.
Five is going to cast Fortune's Favor upon Rowan. When the chosen creature makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw before the spell ends, it can dismiss this spell on itself to roll an additional d20 and choose which of the d20s to use.
Ooh.
Alternatively, when an attack roll is made against the chosen creature, it can dismiss this spell on itself to roll a d20 and choose which of the d20s to use. The one it rolled or the one the attacker rolled.
That's good.
Love it.
Rid, while 5 is doing this, is gonna just walk over and pluck her tooth out from wherever it was living on his outfit.
Oh, sorry, Rid.
That's okay. I know someone who likes them better. Holding the tooth in her hand, Rid's gonna walk over to Zue and just pause for a sec. Are you gonna be okay?
Prior to this, Zue has been awkwardly trying to put this armor on because Zue does not wear armor, and sees Rid approaching it, just like pretends that it's fitting right. I think so. I have you guys.
Here. And as Zue's talking, she starts to help Zue with the fastenings of their armor.
As they grab the tooth from Rid, whispers just to Rid, I have no worries that you'll hit your mark. I'm going to give Rid a bardic inspiration.
Do me a favor. Don't put the tooth in your mouth. And don't die.
I'll do my best. Zue moves the tooth away from their face and puts it in their pocket.
5 is going to approach Rowan after giving him the fortune's favor. Seeing that Rowan is getting himself together and everything, he puts his hand on Rowan's shoulder, looks him deep in the eye, and says, Rowan, I know that you promised that we would go back to your kingdom. I don't know what the future holds, but is there anything that you want said if you aren't able to make it home?
You know, I hadn't really thought about that until right now. 1, fuck the Arcanum. 2, tell my people that Selune is watching over them. And so am I.
Understood.
Anything from you? I've never been to Burndarium, but I'd like to see it someday.
I don't know if my being here and the visions that I've seen mean that I failed in my original protocol, given that I never found a new home for my people. I do not wish to burden you with that task. If we do survive, and he extends this to Zue and Rid, I would just ask that if you ever see someone such as myself in the future, would you just treat them as a brother or sister like you have me?
Always. Can Rowan look for his owl and cast a spell at the same time?
Sure. Perched on the adorning stone handrails that lead up the stairs into the tower, there on top of his sort of decorative stone little ball, is your owl.
I would like to call her over to me. Have her perched on my shoulder. And in doing so, I would like to cast Guardian of Faith and use my owl as my spectral guardian.
Zue would also like to transform back into their most recent persona that Ilianas is aware of.
You shape yourself to that self that Ilianas is very familiar with. And you guys stand outside in the courtyard. It's late at night, it feels. It's cold. The fog is welcoming, as not only is it shared in Arborea, but it is also just very predominant here in the Vale of the Mist. From up above on the tower, still faintly echoed, the sounds of screaming, pain, and some form of torture echoed through the land before you.
So those people are still screaming, and I feel like we should do something about that. So if Ilianas asks, Rid points at Zue, I died. And Rid becomes invisible.
Oh, right, she can do that.
Oh god, okay.
Before we rush in, we're all in agreement to give Zue and Ilianas a second to talk. We move on their mark. Do we need a signal of any sorts?
I think maybe, Rid, if you don't mind giving me my book back, I'll have it open while I report, and if we need to, I'll close the book.
You feel the book before you see it, and it is heavy in your hands, and then as Rid lets go of it, it becomes visible again. Is he going to question the burn mark?
I'll figure something out.
Oh, can he see invisible people? I should have asked that first.
I'm not sure. We've never done that before.
It's okay. We'll figure it out.
We'll try our best to bite our tongues in there, but we trust you.
Thank you. Zue straightens their body up and holds the book tight to their chest. Shall we?
After you. Welcome home.
You feel Rid's hand squeeze yours for a second before she lets go.
Zue lets out a slight smile and starts walking towards the entrance.
You walk towards that familiar set of stairs that lead to the double red doors that adorn Ilinas' mansion. What felt very familiar to you at one point now seems distant. You can now sort of make out the small paint splashes missing on the door, the wear and tear of the handle. This luscious place of living that you called home now has a different energy to it.
I pause a moment before opening the door.
Door swings open, and the entire entrance of the home is pitch black. All lights are extinguished. All you can see is but the reflections of the light from outside seeping in that casts the ever so faint glass on certain adorning things that Ilinas has up, or some of the frames itself, the paint that you can make out. But even as you look around you, you now see before you that same grand staircase that leads up into Ilinas' library. Very similar to that of the staircase created by the tree that led into the library of Kaimasora and his Concord in Arborea.
I'd like to cast Druidcraft and light these candles to illuminate the space.
First thing you notice, Zue, all the portraits that Ilinas had of all of these different individuals rejoicing and having a great time, perhaps enjoying a meal, sort of all these portraits that were alive within are all missing the people. It's almost like you're looking at a portrait of a bench in the middle of some oceanic view place. You look over to the portrait of what used to be some tiefling woman, but not there anymore. All of the portraits are empty, and the entire place seems uninhabited.
Zue freezes in place for a second, a little bit shocked. You see them kind of straighten and shake their head as if to shake off their fear, looks back at everyone, giving a small nervous smile, and starts to walk with purpose up the steps.
Following right behind.
Following right alongside Zue. Courage, Zue.
You have the light of these candles that illuminate the space around you, but it still feels lacking. So much so that when you guys even notice Rowan's lantern, this vibrant blue flame that is sort of perpetually ongoing, the light itself has this almost like force around it, where it just perfectly cuts off and the darkness cannot continue seeping through. It is bright, and it helps, but you take note of that, Rowan. Zue, you know very well that once you land in this space, directly before you is Ilinas' library, where you all converse with him, where you spoke with Kaimasora on your very first day. You know that to your left would be Ilinas' room, and to the right, it leads upwards to the tower.
I pause at the top of the steps by the library door, and I send a telepathic message to Rid. Do you want to try and check the tower?
Whatever you need.
Zue turns to everyone and whispers, I'm not sure if we need to go to the library and talk to Ilinas, or up to the tower for those screams first.
I don't know if I want you in the room alone with Ilionas, but I can leave you with 5 and I can follow Rid to the tower if you'd like.
Rowan, are you sneaky enough to go with Rid up the tower?
Thanks to Saitia.
I don't know, what do you guys think?
I don't know if now is the time to split up, but if we need to check on those screams...
Can we tell if those screams belong to somebody that we know?
The screams resemble this lower pitched voice, but when strained enough can go into such a high range, and it resembles that of Kaimasora.
I think the screams are the more pressing matter.
If you want to head on with Ilionas right now, feel free, or we can all make our way up to the tower and track back.
Zue looks hesitantly at the door and clenches their jaw before turning back to the group. I think Rid is right. I think the screams are more pressing.
Knowing how desolate this place is, Ilionas could be up there too anyway.
Should I keep leading the way or does someone else want to?
You've got this.
Zue straightens their outfit out again and just begins walking up the stairs.
You know that this staircase is interwoven into the structure of the home. It is actually very rare that you've been up here. You've been up here once, long time ago. And you just remember that when Ilionas showed it to you, it was just a empty tower with a window overlooking that above the veil into the rest of Fendraeya. So you begin to walk. As you all head up, there are these torches along the walls that as Zue steps in front of them, they light themselves. And one by one, they continue to light your path. But every time you turn another corner or you take another path into this ever-winding, sort of almost maze to the tower, it is darker ahead, but the flames help. So you continue until you eventually get to the spiraling set of stairs that leads about 20 feet or so to the very top of the tower. And there, you hear from behind the door the screams.
Please, stop!
We need to interrupt this.
In this situation, I would knock.
Rid is crouched behind a column or something in the room, listening and ready for Zue to knock.
5 looks to Rowan.
Respond as Zue would.
5 steps back.
Rowan clenches the lantern. Words first.
Zue gives an anxious look to everyone before turning to the door and gives 3 curt knocks on the door.
You knock on the door, and in that last knock, the door just swings open, and the screams continue. And as the door opens, you know this room to be a fairly small circled room with just one single window. You look, and the room's empty. You still hear the screaming now, and you now hear it from behind you, Rowan, down the hallway.
Siege is playing tricks on us. This is all an illusion.
Can we roll to check?
Sure.
Is it just straight intelligence?
If you're looking to see if it's an illusion, you can do an Arcana check. Or if you're looking to sort of investigate the room, you can do that as well. Or intelligence to sort of try to see what you can piece together from what the information you have.
Oh, nat 20 on an Arcana.
Oh, good job. I have a 19 in investigation.
I got a 29 for Arcana.
Zue, you sort of look at the room. With Rowan there by your side, you hear the screams very, almost like if they were just from beyond the wall now, but they still feel very similar and very centered on a point. And that point is somewhere in here. Rid, you come inside and you begin to sort of look around you. And there in the center of the room, you see what looks like 3-4 drops of blood, fairly small in size. And it makes you think that perhaps whatever is happening, but it's being moved around, is in a different location, is happening at the same time concurrently. It's a bit of everything. And then you would know, Zue, and I'll say that knowing this from Rowan's lantern that sort of like you used to light the room as well, the way in which certain individuals of certain kinds of magic choose to hide themselves is by creating these rifts. They open these small pockets within the ley lines of the world, and they can hide things within. And you feel that perhaps maybe this is what's at play here, as these screams continue, and every now and then they stop, and all you hear is just the panting.
Please, enough.
On this hunch, Zue reaches for their quill, rubs it gently, and casts Detect Magic.
And you get a strong sense of abjuration. Primarily magic that is meaning to banish and block something away.
He's here. I know he's here. Where is he?
Something is blocking us from seeing him.
What?
You hear it now from behind you down the hallway. The screams now sort of carry over. Almost as if, and I'll say with your massive roll of 29, he's being shifted.
Ilianos? Are you here?
No response. And then,
Zue? Heavens! Where are you, Zue?
Oh,
are you alright?
yes, we just got back. I took everyone up because I thought you were up here. I'm so sorry.
No, this is quite alright. I was expecting someone, but not yourselves at this time. Please, I'm just downstairs. Didn't hear you come in.
Ilianos is downstairs.
You hear,
Zue, you're here? You can't be here right now. I understand that perhaps this is when you meant to arrive, but I am expecting someone. You cannot be here right now.
Zue just starts moving, hoping everyone else will follow, and sends Ilianos a message back. I don't know what to tell everyone, and Ilianos, it's really urgent.
Believe me, Zue, what I have to do today is also very urgent. The individual that I am speaking to is also incredibly of high interest to everything we're doing. So please just take the time, wait for me outside, or just wait for me. I should be done soon.
Ilianos, it's about the Concord.
What of it?
The last member.
Meet me in the library.
I'll see you soon. As Zue continues walking.
all of you now sort of descend down. That eerie sort of like ticking time clock sensation overcomes you. Now you head to this massive doors that are the entrance to Ilianos' library. They stand there before you, massive in size. Where Ilianos, on the interrogation or the exchange that you all had with Kaimasora, was lit in this black flame, and engulfed by it, you all helped him put him out. You remember that spot. You're standing in that same exact spot.
Does anyone need to do anything before we go in?
Do you?
You see Zue's hands are kind of like shaking. No, I'm ready.
Rid's hand on your shoulder, Zue.
Up and out.
Up and out. Zue begins to approach.
As you're all standing there in front of these doors, Zue, you go to reach for the handle, and then right behind you, you hear,
Zue?
as from down the stairs, Ilianos, holding on to the handrail of the stairs, looks up to you, and looks to all of you and goes,
Look at you all. You made it. How wonderful. I didn't even see you come in. I was just a little preoccupied with something, but I'm so thankful. You all made it out all right. How have you been?
as he begins to walk up the stairs with a cheery, joyful attitude to him.
Rid in Zue's head. If he forgot about me, let him forget.
Zue begins to walk also towards Ilianos in their cheery step in this persona.
You both meet at the middle of the stairs, and Ilianos used to do this thing where he would hold you by the shoulders and he would just sort of wouldn't necessarily embrace, but would hold you enough to acknowledge you, and he would eye you down, and he would get very sort of excited every time he would see you. A very familiar greeting. And sure enough, he begins to try to reach for your arms.
I allow it.
Zue, look at you. I mean, look at you. There was 4 of you, if I'm not mistaken.
Unfortunately, Ilianos, not everyone was able to make it back.
Just for the flavor of it, make a deception check for me.
24.
You say this without an issue. He doesn't skip a beat. You watch as his face kind of close off a bit.
I'm so sorry, Zue. I apologize. I was not my intention to send any of you on some
adventure, and kind of looks to you 5 and Rowan, and for the most that you can make out, seems a genuine apologetic gesture.
Well, we made discoveries.
That's good. Discoveries are good. They're good for your books as well.
Yeah, my books. Shall we? And Zue guides their hand towards the library doors.
You watch as Ilianos, when you guide to the door, he kind of stops and,
before we do, I do have somebody here. It would be in our great interest, I'm speaking in, of course, in behalf of the Arcanum, for us to perhaps conduct ourselves in a very professional manner, if that's okay. I'm not quite aware of what she is doing in the library, but this does require a bit of a delicate touch, if that makes sense.
Completely understood, Ilianos. I assume Alana? Zue whispers that name to him.
You whisper the name, and in unison, all of the candles go out. Dark room again. And Ilianos looks up and he goes, That's, claps his hand, and all of the torches and lights sort of rejuvenate again, but the portraits remain empty.
In that moment, when the lights go out, as Ilianos flares them back up, Rowan does a little, shake of his lantern. The flames flare up for just a moment, but centering on Rid. Rid, I would like to give you my vigilant blessing, so you have advantage on your next initiative roll, just as the warmth comes over you from the lantern.
This would actually be the first time that anybody outside of the Arcanum has been allowed. You think this is wise? And kind of looks to you, Zue, and is trying to do that same whisper, friendly chatter that he always used to do.
I would have to leave that up to your expertise, but this is an urgent matter.
All right. Let's see what we can discuss. This is of high importance, especially if you gathered more information in regards to this treacherous monster. Follow me.
Begins to walk through, heads to the entrance of the library, and there he sort of takes a beat, places his hand on the door handle, and both doors swing wide open to reveal the same library, but now completely torn asunder. There are pages and books scattered throughout everywhere. The pictures, these beautiful, elaborate pictures of Ilianos, have gashes and cuts on them, very similar to the portraits of the home in Yggdrasil. And there, at the end of the room, a massive stained glass window, and that table in the shape of an eye, where Ilianos discussed to you about your job. There, sitting on a chair, a woman. Alone in the room, Kaimasora nowhere in sight. You watch as when she sits there, she places her hand on the table and is just kind of methodically tapping it. She is elven, with long red hair that now when you sort of look at it, in the first moment when the doors open, the hair seems to be swaying on its own, almost like it has a life of its own. Doesn't necessarily give you too much of a tell or a read as to what she possibly is doing, but she does have armor over top, adorned in robes. Crossed legs, she says, Oh, you brought me visitors, Ilianaz.
Yes, Alana, this is you know Zue, or you know of Zue, and this is the rest, or apologies, this is a good amount of the group that joined us back. They are the reason for why you have Kai Masora.
Alana get up from the table, and she walks over to the stained glass, and is sort of looking outside, which you can see now from whatever moonlight is up in the sky, hits the stained glass in such a perfect way that it just makes up this beautiful shimmering sets of colors, even in the pale moonlight. And she just kind of stands there. Ilianaz looks back to all of you and he nods and steps into the room.
Zue gives a deep bow before taking a step into the room.
Just a very slight nod before stepping in.
5, madam. Druid Forged of Burndarium. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
No titles. Simply Alana. So, Ilianaz speaks very highly of you, Zue. We have taken great interest in your work and your findings and the way in which you've been chronicling away and writing so feverishly on that book of yours. We are very thankful. Always have been, always will be. She's still not looking at you. She's still just talking to the stained glass.
I am so honored that my work could be useful to you.
Sense a little tone in that voice of yours, Zue. She then turns around and looks to you and says, "Good, great. Then perhaps you are ready to discuss your findings, whatever it is that you came across, wherever it is that you went. I know that Kai Masora mentioned a certain location. Please, share with me everything."
Well, may I sit?
No.
We had originally gone to the Ironwood Grove. We ended up in the most interesting place where we learned a lot about, I believe his name was Commander Adrian.
Yes, Commander Adrian was a very honorable member within our ranks. It would have been such a pleasure for you to have met him. But good, very well. Do you remember this place, Ilianaz?
Apologies, Alana. I have never been.
And Alana goes, "Continue."
I learned quite a bit about some of Adrian's work there. I'm so sorry. I'm just so distracted by the honor of meeting you. My thoughts are all over the place.
She doesn't bat an eye.
We learned a little bit about the Concord. And some of what I believe we found might indicate that the Concord aren't necessarily responsible for the Grey Waste. Have you ever heard of the Omen of Time?
Oh, perhaps.
Alana, my greatest apologies. May I have a moment to gather my thoughts so that way I may give you a more in-depth and accurate report?
Do you know why we allow you to run and play pretend with Ilianaz, Zue?
Pretend?
You were on the brink of truly tapping into something many of us simply dream of. You exhibit it every day. We take great interest in you, and that is because your ability to lie and cheat your way out of every scenario you place yourself in is but a salvation for the spirit. Free of guilt, free of remorse, a blank canvas, if you will, for us to paint on.
And you see Zue starts to lose their confident stance and their hands are kind of shaking. I am glad that benefits the Arcanum.
Very well. Take your time. Think about the things that you need to think about. I'll be downstairs. Ilinas goes, Alana, did you want me to? No. You can stay. I'll help myself to whatever it is that you feed yourself. Begins to walk down the stairs away from the library.
Zue goes to the closest thing that Zue can sit on and just kind of lets their body collapse into a seat.
It's almost the first time that Rowan has been able to unclench his shoulders, let his arms hang freely. Just the stress and tension of the room was a bit much, and trying to bite his tongue that whole time took a lot out of him.
Rid is having a really hard time being dead.
Ilinas.
Yes, Zoe, come on, speak up. Raise your voice a little. It's all right. She is intimidating, but it'll be all right.
Zue flips the book open on their lap, looks down at the book, avoiding Ilianas's gaze, begins to drop their fake Zue voice. Do you remember asking me what I would do if I saw the world burn?
Yes, I recall that.
Do you remember my answer?
Refresh my memory.
I would like to hear what your solution is first.
Oh, well, the world is, at the end of the day, very fragile. If one sees a fire starting somewhere, the best thing you can do is give it your all and try to put out that fire. And now, if it's the world burning, then perhaps the community and people and the Arcanum can help in putting out said fires. We're here for the people. Make a perception check, Zue.
3.
You don't necessarily notice anything too strange about that response.
It's interesting. I remember giving you a really similar answer. And I remember you almost scoffing at it, saying, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, that's good to hear.
Rid, what's your passive perception?
It's 14.
You are looking at this interaction between Ilianas and Zue, and there's something very strange about the way in which Ilianas is standing. He has his arms behind his back, hunched over slightly. This posture is not of someone of what looks like Ilianas' age. Whatever it is, he is holding himself in a very different way.
Rid in Zue's head. Something's off. His posture looks hurt or old or something wrong. Be careful.
So, Zue, are we ready to discuss what we meant to with Alana?
Would you mind sitting with me while we talk? I'm still feeling a little shaken, and I think it would help.
Sure. Let's sit. We've got some time. From downstairs, you hear the sounds of plates crashing onto the floor. Glass shattering. There's a deliberate way in which what seems like Alana is trying to go around Ilianas's belongings.
Ilianas, do you trust me?
I only trust you, Zue.
Is it because we're the same?
Same in spirit? Same in tenacity? I don't know what same you're speaking of.
Zue is just like me. And Zue looks up into Ilianas's eyes.
That is something you dreamt? What is this? I'm sorry, I just don't know exactly what it is that you may be referring to.
You wrote that.
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Absolutely. You're just like me.
You wrote about me.
I always write about you. It's how everyone is aware of all the wonderful things you've done for the Arcanum.
You talk about how wonderful I am, but you keep things from me.
There is a certain level of discretion that I must practice, but you know pretty much everything I know.
Do I?
Rid, with your passive, you see Ilinas' hand twitch slightly as he has his hands on his thighs. You should.
Ilinas, I don't feel like you've been completely honest. You said that you had never been to Aboria.
I've never been.
Yet when you reached out to me to warn me about how dangerous it was, you said to me it was easier back then when I asked you how you traveled.
And he leans back on the chair.
You know you're so fussy. I've never liked you much.
This different voice coming from the man standing in front of you that you see as Ilinas.
He never shuts up about you. And yet he talks and talks and talks about all your great deeds. This would have been easier.
And you watch as with one hand he raises it and a shimmering effect comes over him. As before you see a bald-headed man in clothes of the Arcanum that Rid and Rowan you immediately recognize as Creighton Altus. He gets up and he's a little bit older. There is no point. Bring them to me then. And you watch as Creighton, he kind of looks at you all and he goes,
It's just better for you, Zue, to tell us everything you know, and then perhaps we will give you Ilinas. We need to keep him as far away from you as possible just to know that your intentions under our watchful eye are true. No hard feelings, he's aware of this exchange. Shall we?
And you watch as his long, skinny hand points towards the door, and Rid, you hear in your head,
Oh, I want his blood. I want everything that makes that man work.
Rid's muscles are tensed to move, and her eyes are on Creighton. But in her peripheral, she's aware of Zue and barely holding herself back.
Zue, if you tell him one fucking thing, I'm pulling the trigger.
5, hearing Rowan's words, seeing Rowan react in this way. Might be the time to close the book on this one.
Zue ignores both of them, and you see Zue, whose hands were previously shaking, are now firmly popping open the inkwell. As you see the ink flowing out, and it forms a very inky scythe in their hand. And they pull the scythe with the curved part behind Creighton's head to pull him in closer.
give me an intimidation check. And do it with advantage, I will say.
Nat 20!
Wow.
There you go.
He's clearly outnumbered and was not even anticipating your drop of the ink vial. Gets pulled in closer and he goes,
Ooh, okay, all right. Now listen, whatever you're attempting to do, you will be doing so in the presence of...
and he kind of nods in the direction of Alana.
So if you wish to see your precious Ilinas once again, or that treacherous beast that you all brought in, I would be very careful with everything you do moving forward. Or that one gets it.
Creighton points in the direction and meets directly with you, Rid, pointing right between your eyes.
Do I make myself clear?
Yes. Though, I want you to know that you are not as powerful as you think. Because the eye that you claim to always be watching clearly doesn't know everything.
I would like to disagree with that statement.
Zue is going to let the ink drop back into the well, leans back to stand up straight, giving a look over to where Rid is, and just a soft nod, and begins to turn to walk out.
You walk out, and there at the bottom of the stairs, littered with just broken glass all over the beautiful marble flooring that is Ilinas' mansion, Alana waits there with her hands still cupped. Are you ready to speak now, Zue? Truthfully, without hesitation?
Where is Ilinas?
What do you know?
I don't trust Kraden's weaselly little ass. I need to know that Ilinas is safe.
Nobody does. That's what makes him him. And Ilinas, he is just fine. You can trust me, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be alive right now.
Unfortunately, I don't have all-seeing eyes, so I would like to see it before I believe it.
Make a persuasion check.
32.
She looks at you, and she runs her finger down just empty space. Like a ripping sound through the fabric of reality. Ilinas emerges, and it's almost like followed by like a gust of cold wind. Whoo, whoo. And he shakes off a bit of snow on top of him, and he goes, "Okay, well, are we ready? Did we do it?" Zue, and just looks to you, doesn't read the room, and just again in his chauvinistic, looks to you sort of alive and well, and goes, "Wonderful. So, I'm here now. She discussed with you. Trust has been earned. Alana, much respect to you and yours. Kraden, step away from her, please." And Alana looks at you, Zue, and she goes, "Zue, tell me what you know."
Zue darts their eyes between Ilinas and the rest of their party members.
Rowan, your owl, as Zue's hesitating, is just shifting on your shoulder, just as tense as they are.
I'm shifting right along with her.
I know that the Arcanum is going to acquire the trust they want in Fendraeya.
And?
That is what I saw, what we saw in our visions with the Omen of Time. I don't know what you want, there's a lot.
There is the matter of the Concord. There is a precious group that is...
And then you watch as she's kind of talking, she looks back at you, Five, again, and she goes,
I knew that. I saw it somewhere.
"Creature, bring me that which is on your staff."
5 don't.
And you see the thorn beside on the top of your staff is pulsing. And she looks at you and she says,
The Concord, the individuals involved, and that.
"There is many unknown factors that you might enlighten me with once you
Erased my vision. There are certain parts I still wish to know about.
We learned that the Arcanum tore apart a family.
We know this part, Zue. We know this very well. I want to know one thing. How did you come to possess that?
And without even pointing, looks at Five's staff with the thorn beside.
How did you acquire it? How did you get it?
And, "Creature, I will not repeat myself again. Bring me that which I desire."
Rowan puts himself in between Five and Kraden, wherever that may be.
Zue steps in between Alana and 5.
Don't want to do any of this. He's too pretty. And looks over at Leonas's direction. "Well, perhaps we can persuade you in other ways." And with her right hand now, she rips a similar line through the fabric of reality. And through it, laying down, paralyzed, but covered in blood, broken horns, pieces missing, and his skin almost burning, Kaimasora. And Alana grabs him by the horn, pulls him out of this unspeakable place that he was sort of kept in. And she holds him up and she says, "You think you know a lot of things, Zue? You think you learned a lot of things. That you and your experience has now enlightened you. Well, you see this one?" And then she's holding on to Kaimasora by the horns, and it's just this weak and frail old man. He wants very much what you take for granted. The ability to be free of guilt, to be free of all that remorse. This filth. Commander Adrian did his duty. He watched and studied everything, and everything you've been telling us is up to speed with his last notes. And the reason for why we're even here is because of you, Ilianas.
This is awkward, Alana. I'm sorry. She goes,
Or should I say, Sorene?
I am sorry. What did you say, Alana?
He saw this piece of rock, Commander Adrian, that was so heavily consuming in potential. We knew it would serve us properly, but that is the thing with memory, isn't it, Zue? It always fails us when we're about to do something special. I did my research. Thanks to you, of course, Zue. But I did my research into this Concord and where it emerged from. I don't know if perhaps you happen to dive too deeply into the history of the universe. Celestial forms is what the Concord is. Touched by starlight. Placed onto the realms unknown to discover. Isn't that right, Kaimasora?
Yes.
And serve. Certain creatures shouldn't have any connection to that great beyond that fuels them. That is why we mean to rid everything of that which makes it shine. Now, you see Alana now drop Kaimasora, and he falls to the ground. Now, you see that gem, Sorene? And she points to you 5. That is where we begin to cast our very watchful eye and begin to show the heavens itself that the Arcanum are the only ones worthy of these gifts. Take that which people don't fully comprehend and build something out of it that they can rejoice in under our ever watchful eye. And then looks to Yuzue with a sort of slight grin. She is holding back something. And then she looks to Ilianas, who is now sort of like, he's completely disassociating. He's like looking at her, he's looking at you, but he's staring at the blank wall. Do you remember, Sorene, when you came to me, crying, scared, calling out for someone? You were just a boy. You have to remember, Sorene.
Alana, I apologize. What are you saying?
Calling out for the mother you murdered, forsaking the father, and points at Kaimasora, that was always seeking eternity. She then reaches down and pulls Kaimasora again by the horns, and she says, "How long were those nights, Sorene? I cared for you. I held you, and you told me so much under those tears." She lets go of Kaimasora again. He slumps and hits the stone floor hard.
Alana, that's enough.
Zue, you watch as Ilianas look down at Kaimasora and he goes, "Father?" Ilianas at this point finds himself saying that, and he holds his hand over his mouth and then runs outside into the courtyard. Alana, without even turning around, screams to you all, "Was I not there for you, Sorene? Did I not hold you as a mother could? Ilinas from outside, you see him drop in front of the stairs. Alana picks up Kaimasora and begins to drag him outside as Kraden, he begins to walk down the stairs in a rapid pace in her direction.
Rid is not far from Kraden at any point.
I would like to chase after Ilinas.
You come outside, Zue, and now the wind has picked up. Very similar to all of your interactions in Arborea. 5, as you see Zue run away and sort of head into the direction of Ilinas, the thorn beside pulses faster and faster, and it's almost like you can hear or feel the wood of the staff breathe, and it is a very sort of like frantic breathing. As Alana, dragging Kaimasora, heads outside, tumbling his feet down the sets of stairs, and Kraden following not too far behind.
Whenever Ilinas stops, I would like to run up to him. Does she stop me from going to his other side?
As you try to get closer, Kraden, you can see that he's kind of like positioning himself between you and them.
Move.
Outside, hiding somewhere, I suppose, within sight.
Zue says move, and also gives Rid a glance as they say that.
5 is going to approach 10 feet away, looking at Kraden, and says, "You heard them. Move."
You watch as Kraden kind of looks to you and he's like holding his fingers. Give me that which she seeks, and I will gladly move.
Rowan lifts the shield up, almost chest height, and forcefully moves Kraden back, not leaving 5 feet within Kraden.
Are you pushing him toward Rid or away from Rid?
Toward.
When you all get here, Rowan, you begin to push on Kraden. The intensity and the atmosphere all around you now has sort of been pushed to this point. Kraden is being pushed by Rowan. He still doesn't let go of his sight on the thorn beside. As Alana looks to you and then looks to the thorn beside, Ilinas escapes sort of like where she is and begins to run towards the center of the square, and he begins to yell, "Stop it! Stop it! Please! Stop it! No more! No more!" Alana gets up and you see her hair almost fluff out completely like waves and tentacles behaving on their own. And the sky begins to turn darker as you hear the thunder rumbling, and the wind picks up and these red leaves begin to gather around. And Alana looks and says, "Sorene Fernos Navine! Look at me!" And you watch as Elena stop, frozen in the center of the square. And then Alana walks. And in between Ilinas, her, and you all, even Kraden turns around to see. Kraden with me. Sorene, you will get me that gem by any means necessary. The Arcanum demands it. I demand this of you. And remember, Sorene, I'm always watching! In that moment, you watch as Ilinas drops to the ground, almost ripping out his hair, and his tears begin to roll down, and you look on his face, and you watch as bewildered he looks to Kaimasora, his eyes beginning to turn red. I never wanted your dreams, father! I never did! Kaimasora from the floor looks up and he goes, "Son!" Ilinas holds his arms out in disbelief and he goes, "What am I seeing? It burns!" And he begins to cry out towards the sky. He looks around and he finds you, Zue. And he looks to you and he goes, "Zue! I remember that name! I remember it somehow!" And you watch as he falls to the ground again, almost clutching his stomach. The winds pick up as the red leaves now begin to gather around Ilinas. 5, you watch as the thorn beside glow to such an extent that when Ilinas screams, it sounds like this light right above you. And it rips a hole right above where you're all standing. That then begins to shift in the direction of Ilinas, guiding it. And there the smoke comes out as Zue. You see Ilinas that looks up to you, his hands shaking as his skin begins to turn red. More and more, he panics and doesn't understand what is happening, an unmatched fear in his eyes. as he looks to you and he goes, Zue, I'm scared. I'm sorry. A horn pierces from out of his skin and begins to coil back over his head as another and a massive scream comes out from his lungs as all of a sudden these black flames engulf Ilyanas, and he lets out a scream to such an extent his clothes begin to be burned off, and the only thing that remains is the symbol of the Arcanum that sears itself onto his skin. In that moment, from the opening above you from the thorn beside 5, you watch as it parts and a gloom stalker roar. Ilyanas looks up to it as all of a sudden it's engulfed in smoke. In that moment that you can't see him, you hear panting breathing as you look up in front of you, towering in height, red skin with 2 horns and these yellow piercing eyes. Not the scared boy that you saw in Hades' vision, not the adult that you saw and got to know, but something else, something within. Theranos, the missing. I need you all to roll initiative. What you see before you is an individual that now, as the fog leaves everything that makes up his body, he generates heat. And you see these archaic celestial runic symbols adorning his entire chest, coming down from where the fabric of his clothes still remains that hasn't been completely burned off. The horns coil back in this coal black color and this red skin, vibrant and pure. From behind him, as the smoke continues to clear, you see one black wing extend out, and where the other would be, the remains rings just ripped altogether. He looks to you all with the Arcanum symbol seared onto his chest, and he points to 5. And almost like the voices of all 3 of them joining together, you hear this voice.
Give me that, or I will rip you apart.
This ferocious yellow eyes. There is no discernible trace of the boy nor the man. This is just what is. So with that, what was your initiative rolls?
Nat 20 minus 1 for 19.
Nat 20 plus 4 for 24.
18.
15.
As you're all standing there, Kraden, he looks to Alana after Alana said, Kraden with me. And you watch as she extends her hand to cast Dimension Door on herself. And she walks through without even waiting for Kraden. Kraden then, oh, I want to stay and see this. And he remains, just as the voice of Alana lingers and says, useless. In that moment, as you're all standing looking at this creature that now formed in front of you, towering in height, with silver hair that resembles that of Hades himself, down and long to the floor, this devil-like creature stares at you all. Something forgotten that is now allowed to thrive. An amalgamation of that which we seek so desperately to hide away, and when it emerges, it becomes an unstoppable force. As Fendraeya stares at all of you and he points to you 5 and the thorn beside, from behind him, landing behind him, as his wing spreads out, the gloom stalker. And Fendraeya looks to it and then back to all of you. As you all are staring into the eyes of hatred and rage incarnate. Zue, what are you doing?
Zue is going to cast Detect Thoughts, and then is going to move closer to 5. And I will wait there after casting Detect Thoughts. I get surface level thoughts. The only time you'd have to do a save is if I was probing deeper.
In that moment, when you now don't recognize who stands before you, you take a step back, you cast Detect Thoughts, and you hear the voice of a boy, of Sorene. Oh, where are we? As Ilyanas, rid yourself of this! And then from between, then out loud to all of you, Fendraeya,
My time to walk amongst you is here. I will get that which my mistress just so seeks.
And you move back towards 5. With that, Fernos looks at himself. He looks over and the wing, this black wing, comes over and he begins to sort of like caress the feathers. Then he turns over to his left and then the remains of what was one and is going to go ahead and cast Radiant Spear towards you, Rowan. As you are the shield standing in the way, and there is something to his not choosing of Zue. Does a 14 hit?
It does not.
He watches this spear jolt out of the thin air like a lightning crackling bolt, and he throws it in your direction. You take your shield, bounces, ricochets off, and you watch as he kind of like shakes his hand, looks at it, and begins to walk forward. Human feet and all, but now before you, a celestial-looking being damned to never remember. Rowan, what are you doing?
Rowan, after taking the spear, turns to Zue. Zue, you need to get through to him. I don't care how, I don't care what you do. And I turn around, hoping that Zue and 5 can take on the mind of Theranos. I look Kraden in the eye and I say, I can't wait to watch you bleed. So let's make it shine. And I cast Fairy Fire at first level on Kraden. Can he make a dex save for me, please?
That's a 14.
He now is glowing the bright blue moonlight around, and anyone attacking him has advantage.
You cast Fairy Fire, engulfed him in the light. Now it is Rit's turn.
Every nerve in Rid's body is alight as her focus narrows to this one person, and she comes up behind to stand opposite Rowan at Kraden's back. She dismisses her invisibility, so to him she appears out of thin air, and she spins him around and she grabs him by the throat. And she says, in the 3 voices, herself, Olga, and Diana, burn from the inside. And as she makes her attack, I want the glow around Kraden to turn purple. It's 30 to hit.
Oh.
That hits.
As Rid's hand is locked around Kraden's throat, she squeezes. Black smoke pours out of her hand as you hear Olga out loud. And the black smoke fills Kraden, shriveling him, thinning him, until he looks like the way that Diana looked in the visions that Zue saw, emaciated and weak. And Rid squeezes and says, burn, as she burned. And she has cast a 5th level contagion.
Fucking get it.
So now I believe he's poisoned.
When you say that, you're holding on to the neck, and you hear this amalgamation of voices like a symphony, all united as one, not separate, but together, seeking the same justice. And as you hold on to him, you watch for a brief second Kraden open his eyes, and he goes, "How?" And you watch as he begins to wither, the veins and everything underneath his skin turn black. And it takes over, and it just darkens his eyes, and he becomes poisoned. 5. You watch as, from next to you, both Rowan and Rid now sort of have this intimate exchange with Kraden. And you stand there sort of looking at it all, and your thorn beside still blooms, pulsing faster and faster as it kept that rift open from where the Gloomstalker came from. What are you doing?
5 is going to Misty Step to the top of the tower.
You can't get up to the tower, I'll say, because it's definitely a little bit beyond the range, but you can get to the roof of the mansion if you wish. I'll allow a bonus action because this is like a charge-based action, so you can do a bonus action if you happen to have one.
Bonus action, I am going to change my starry form. My armor is going to glow. The symbol is going to burn fiercely. I'm going to activate this new form as a bonus action on your subsequent turns. While it lasts, you can make a ranged spell attack hurling a luminous arrow that targets one creature within 60 feet of you. So that's in addition to whatever attack I do next round.
It is now the Gloomstalker's turn. As Fernos gets closer to each of you and sort of closes in on the space, you watch as the Gloomstalker, almost like a pet, look up in the direction of Fernos and takes flight. raises up towards the sky, 40 or so feet, and is going to go ahead and shriek. All of you, I need you to give me Constitution saving throws.
25.
Nat 20.
19 plus 1 from my boy Rowan equals 20.
19 plus 1, so 20.
Just for the hell of this, Rowan, can you roll a d20 for me?
Absolutely can.
You're rolling for Kraden.
Looking at a 2.
You watch as, in the midst of you and Rid sort of taking ownership of this moment against Kraden, the Gloomstalker soars up. You hear those wings again. And very familiar to you all, you hear the gurgling from deep within its throat as it begins to do the shriek, and you know what follows. And all of you sort of stand there and brace yourselves as the shriek reverberating throughout the entire space. And each one of you gather yourselves and look up. And Rowan and Rid, you see before you as Kraden becomes paralyzed. Top of the round, Zue.
Zue is going to walk 10 feet towards Hernos and is going to take out the journal that is Sorne's from before and open it out as they cast Crown of Madness, and like the ink from the words kind of spread out and fly around his head to make like an inky crown.
What's the save on that one?
Wisdom save, please.
That's a 16.
17 was what he needed.
So you come up and you cast the ink as it begins to form a crown. And you watch as Fernos, he like reaches for the crown and he holds onto it and is going to use a legendary resistance to succeed as he crushes the ink and it disperses all around you and splatters on your book. And he looks to you and he says,
I will kill you. Don't make me!
Zue's gonna stand firm and just face him for now.
Fernos looks at you as you're sort of eyeing him down, and he towers over you.
Be strong now,
He says to you as he takes out 2 radiant spears from both of his hands. First one is a 27. Second one is a 18.
Wait. I want to use silvery barbs. So he has to re-roll the d20 and use the lower roll.
Second one, natural 1. Oh. So the first one hits 16 points of radiant damage as one of the spears comes up, clocks you between your neck and your head, and you feel yourself like running out of breath as you look up and his hand raises with the other spear. Rid, throw a little flavor in there. What do you do with the silvery barbs?
I think last time Rid used it, her eyes just flashed. So in this moment where her whole world is Kraden, there's one person who can change that. Rid's focus expands to see Zue in trouble, and she looks up and her eyes flash and avert the attack before going back to Kraden.
You watch as the spear come down on you, Zue, and just before it makes contact, like it loses power, and it just misses you altogether. But you feel the thrust of his arms passing by you as they blow wind in your direction. It is now Kraden's turn. Kraden's poisoned, and he is also paralyzed. So what kind of save is it for contagion?
Constitution save.
That's an 11.
15 save DC, so no.
You watch as Kraden sort of stand there and looks to you, Rid, as he's trying to sort of process in his paralyzed state who he's looking at and can't sort of decipher it and tries to as much as he can, but the black on his veins continues to spread all throughout his jaw and into his cheeks. Still poisoned, still paralyzed. Rowan with Rid on deck.
I look past Kraden at Rid. I assume you can take it from here.
Yeah, Your Majesty. I got this.
Rowan is going to turn around quickly, bonus action, Steps of Night, and give himself a flying speed as the bottom half of his legs turn that translucent little star-like form. He's going to fly up and over Thanos towards the Gloomstalker. I've gotten a lot better at killing you, so let's have some fun. We are first going to cast a 3rd level Guiding Bolt, which is only a 14 to hit.
Ooh, just misses.
Just misses, that's fine. I would like to Action Surge with my dip into Fighter and I will then cast a 3rd level moonbeam right on top of the Gloomstalker.
You watch as in that brief moment, the fog clears, revealing the full moon above Fendraeya and this square. In this moment, you feel Salune's presence speaking with you as you call upon this moonbeam.
I just want it to shine down so bright.
So you are now sort of engaged in the air, battling this Gloomstalker, the sort of beacon of light that is the moon against this shadowy creature comprised of the darkness within, flying, and the both of you engage. Rid, what are you doing? Keeping in mind, because he is paralyzed, any creature within 5 feet is an automatic critical hit.
Oh, is it really now? Oh, Jose.
So if it's a critical, remember my rules are you just roll the full damage of whatever it is that you're doing.
Jose Polino, Rid looks this man in the eyes and goes, "Oh, you don't remember me? You will." And she's gonna strike with transmutation as it glows. And, oh my god, Jose, she's gonna lash out for 60 damage.
Let's fucking go.
Fuck.
You take transmutation and you pierce it through. You watch as Kraden can't even move, but transmutation begins to be coated in his blood. Very hurt, but that didn't do it all the way.
I want to turn into Diana with disguised self.
You pierce through, and just as you do, in a blinding flash, you feel Olga's hands push from your shoulders as she projects herself out, and she looks over to Kraden and she goes, "Watch out for this one!" And when she emerges back in a blinding flash, Kraden sees Diana, and it's you holding the sword. His eyes widen as he sees the vision of your sister piercing through to him.
As my bonus action, I'm gonna flip him off and I'm casting Hex. And he's gonna be bad at con saves until I break my concentration.
5.
Standing on top of the mansion, mind racing, trying to figure out what to do in this situation, using a newfound ability, he is going to summon Draconic Spirit. This is an amethyst dragon. Their breath is a destructive energy in a 30-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a dexterity saving throw against the spell. The amethyst dragon spirit just comes down right next to Zue, so it's not pointing its cone in Zue's direction. It is just full force, just going at Theranos. The amethyst dragon drops down, lands with a crash next to Zue, shaking the ground. It rears back its head, and suddenly this brilliant circular tear in reality just suddenly forms in front of its mouth, and it just exhales and breathes this ball of force energy directly on its target.
It's a 15 plus 4.
4 points of force damage. As my bonus action, because I decided to use my starry form, using my staff as a conduit, I hurl a luminous arrow that targets one creature within 60 feet of me. 25.
That hits.
8.
8 points of...
radiant damage.
You take it and you shoot it. And just as it's making its way towards Fernos, you watch as the runic symbols across his entire body light up as he's immune to radiant damage. All of a sudden, the light from your ray goes into the runic symbols and stretches down, and now they begin to glow and they breathe before they go back to their black form. It is now the Gloomstalkers. So the Gloomstalker is engaged with you, Rowan.
Can he make a dex save for Moonbeam, please?
Oh yes, that's right, because it begun its turn. Absolutely. That is a 17 plus 3.
That passes. I rolled 14, so it takes 7 radiant damage.
7 radiant.
And I'll leave this up to you. I forgot about my Guardian of Faith, which is my owl, who has been with me. The Gloomstalker is within 10 feet of me. I don't know if you will let me do that damage now, or if you would rather me wait to my next turn. Entirely up to you.
I'll make the dexterity saving throw now.
Cool.
15.
Oh, my DC is 15. It still takes damage. It's normally a flat 20 radiant damage. Instead, it'll only take 10 from the owl.
And it would be radiant. And it is vulnerable to radiant, so it actually doubles. So then that's 20 points of radiant damage. When the Gloomstalker and you sort of begin to engage in that moment, as the Gloomstalker goes to attack you, the beam of light engulfs it entirely. You hear it shriek, its long neck coil up and roar. And in that minute, when the moonbeam sort of begins to decrease in its intensity, your owl just looks to it, and from its eyes, these rays of light shoot into it, and it pierces right through the chest, and the radiant energy engulfs its entire body. So then now it is going to go ahead and make 2 attacks. It's going to go ahead and bite you. So that's a 16 plus 9. That's a 25.
Ooh, absolutely.
So then you're going to take 22 points of piercing damage, 8 points of necrotic damage. And then now it is going to snatch you.
Don't forget you have Fortune's Favor.
So it is a 26.
I'll use it on that one.
This is a 14 plus 9, 23.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to go ahead and take 9 points of slashing damage, 4 points of necrotic damage, and you are grappled. That's its turn, and since you are there, it is actually going to go ahead and use its bonus action to Shadow Step. Because of the beam, it is going to go ahead and go directly towards the Amethyst Dragon.
Do I come with it?
You do, yes. Zue with Fernos on deck.
Zue is going to look at him after he says that he doesn't want to kill them. And they are also going to cast Guardian of Faith. They are going to look at him and whisper Sorene while gripping the shirt. As they do, a spectral reddish glowing light comes out and forms a younger version of Sorene. Zue is going to hold his hand.
Fernos now will look at you, finishes sort of like crowding away from the fire of the dragon that appears before him. And when his hands come down, you see those same vibrant yellow eyes. And when he looks at you, Zue, he looks up at 5. And his hand just slowly raises. And you see the nails now, these long, uncared for nails, point in the direction of 5. It is going to go ahead and use its legendary action to cast Celestial Chains. So go ahead and make a strength saving throw for me, 5.
I rolled a 5.
You watch as from his hand, Zue, a plume of smoke gather around his wrist. And then when they shoot out towards 5, they form into these black chains. And they just wrap around 5. And as they do 5, you are now restrained by magical chains for 1 minute. While restrained in this way, you can't leave the space by any means. Creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of your turn, ending the effect on a success. So that was his legendary action. So then now he is going to use his action to Radiant Spear, 1 towards the dragon and 1 towards you, Zue. 28.
Oh, damn.
For you, Zue, it's a 16.
Hits.
The dragon is going to take 25 points of radiant damage, and Zue, you are going to take 11 points of radiant damage. As the one spear cracks the dragon on the side, you watch as the entire dragon coil back, almost running right behind the Gloomstalker that is sort of about to prey on top of it. And then with that, Zue, as you're sort of watching these colossal creatures just engage in battle, you don't even notice as another hand comes down and whacks you across your entire body with the radiant energy. It is now Kraden's turn. So Kraden... So let's begin with the first one. Con saving throw.
At disadvantage.
It's a natural 1. So it is still poisoned. That's its second failure, as you are completely just taking ownership of this moment. So then Kraden can't do anything for its turn. It is now Rowan with Rid on deck.
First, I'm going to do the Guardian of Faith. So can it do a deck save for me, please? As my owl just swoops on into it.
16.
Just passes. So as I'm grappled, Luna the owl is flying around and just bashing into it, trying to free me the best it can. It is 10 radiant damage.
So it doubles regardless, because it is vulnerable to radiant. So that is that's a good hit.
And then for my action, I'm going to move the moonbeam back over to me.
Okay.
And say, I bathe in the moonlight, but you can't escape it. So that's another con save because it'll be entering for the first time this turn.
18.
That does pass. It's going to be 18 radiant damage, halved to 9.
So 18. Wow.
Having the moonbeam back over Rowan is just helping him get back into the fight. A little reinvigoration, and we're going to bonus action second wind. 4 HP. None of that damage might have released my grapple, right?
No, but you can make a con saving throw.
15?
That succeeds.
Let's go!
Rid.
So Creighton's paralyzed. Rid grabs him by the chin and looks into his eyes. Do you want mercy? Is that what you want? As she tilts her head to the side. And she waits for some kind of response in his eyes.
He doesn't say anything. He just sort of looks to you now, and what you now see before you is the image of someone that you were so filled with hatred, but at the end of the day, is simply just mortal.
Rid leans in close. If it was mercy you wanted, you killed the wrong sister. And she's striking out with transmutation.
Auto crit.
66 damage to Creighton, and I'd like to try to cut his head off.
In this moment, Rid, he didn't even stand a chance. As he looks to you, tries to formulate the words, and you feel in that moment the restraint that he has allow him to sort of attempt to formulate a word. But as soon as you finish and you take out transmutation, clean cut across the neck, and the head falls onto the floor. The Gloomstalker shrieks as the entire body remains paralyzed and all of a sudden drops and it begins to gush blood from its neck. You have killed Creighton.
Rid picks up Creighton's head and puts it in her bag. Then she directs her attention to the Gloomstalker and uses her bonus action to switch her hex there. She's going to use her movement to join Rowan underneath him. Rid's going to look up at Rowan and yell, "Break whatever you did. I'm fine."
You got it. This one's a little more feisty than the other ones.
That was a crazy round, Rid. It is now Five's turn. Five, you are restrained.
I can't do anything really except try and escape. That is another 5. That's it for 5. The dragon can actually make 2 rend attacks and attack with his breath weapon. So that is a 17 to hit.
Just hits.
23 to hit.
That hits.
13. So that's the first attack. 15. 7 points of force damage from its breath. He still has to make a dexterity saving throw.
21. You watch as your amethyst dragon sort of unleashes on Fernos. And Zue, you're watching as Fernos sort of like tries to use its wing and its arms to try to cover, but the dragon is sort of able to find purchase in every single opening. But Fernos seems a little unfazed by it. It is now the Gloomstalker's turn.
Can he roll a con save at disadvantage, please?
Oh, hell yeah, my dude. That's a 7.
Beautiful. It's 15 to pass. The moonbeam is gonna pulse down another shock for 10 radiant damage, so 20 total.
As the Gloomstalker sort of now is just sort of like wildly flying about in the air, turning its neck in every direction, doesn't even know where to turn. You bring the moonbeam over and you almost feel the pull, like if you're pulling the moon itself just right above him. And as you do, you see its scales. You begin to cinch and burn. It looks incredibly hurt. So with that, it is going to bonus action, shadow step back here. And it is going to go ahead and, or actually, let's go here. And it's going to go ahead and shriek. Or actually, no, I have to see if I get it back. I do get it back. Wow, a perfect 6. I need everybody except for 5 to make a Constitution saving throw.
26.
Success.
19.
Success.
How does a 4 do ya?
Rid, you are actually paralyzed. So you are incapacitated, can't move or speak. The creature automatically you fail strength and dexterity saving throws, and every attack against you has advantage. Any attack the creature, and if we're within 5 feet, same. We get auto crit.
Got it.
Okay. So, ooh, that's interesting. Okay, here we go. That's the Gloomstalker's turn. It is now Zue with Fernos on deck. Zue, what are you doing?
Zue is going to touch Fernos and go, Ilianas, Sorene, you're better than this. And I'm gonna cast Dissonant Whispers at a 3rd level. And I need a wisdom save, please.
It's a 6.
22 psychic damage.
22 psychic damage to Fernos.
Yes.
What do you say, Zue?
I have it as, like, the voices of young Zue calling out to Ilianas.
Ilianas, I did what you suggested. The spell works. Ilianas, you'll never guess what I just read about. Ilianas, I failed again. I can always count on you, Ilianas.
It rattles him.
I'm also going to bonus action hex him and put Hexblade's Curse on him.
So you cast Hexblade's Curse as you feel his mind with all of these memories of your past life with him, and he is shaken. So then with this, Fernos is going to go ahead and cast Blinding Teleport and looks over in the direction of Rid as within a blinding light, he appears right behind the Amethyst Dragon. I need the Amethyst Dragon and Rid to both give me Constitution saving throws.
Oh, that's a 19.
That is an 18.
All of you see Fernos disappear, and as soon as the entire body becomes corporeal, this blinding light, like a flashbang, and you all sort of turn away and then come back unaffected. Seeing it was unaffected, it's going to take 4 steps back. You watch as 5, you're still restrained by the chains, and he looks up at you, and he says,
Give it to me.
It's going to go ahead and cast Heavenly Destruction. I need everybody to make a Constitution saving throw.
Nat 1.
13.
I also got a 13.
That's a 16.
Every single one of you takes 78 radiant damage from Heavenly Destruction. As Fernos looks to 5, who does not give up the Thornbesite, and then with its hands, raise him up towards the sky that now begins to create that similar maelstrom. For a brief second, all of you in the center of the square swear you can see Hades. You all take 31 points of radiant damage, and you are knocked prone.
Zue drops.
This blinding effect of the skies itself almost casting their entire energy onto the mortal realm that you all live in quake you to your core. And when you come out of it, you're feeling like your chest is sort of being compressed by the force of the world itself. You fall prone. Zue does not get up.
How would I being knocked prone work when I'm like 20, 30 feet in the air?
So you take fall damage. How high are you from the sky?
How high was the Gloomstalker?
The Gloomstalker was 40 feet. So you take 18 points of force damage as your body hits the floor.
Rowan was hanging on by a thread, but the impact of the floor knocks him out.
Rowan and Zue are unconscious. Rowan, I need a death saving throw from you.
It's a 7.
You have 1 failed death saving throw. In that moment, you feel Luna perched on your head, trying to slowly peck you on your forehead as your vision comes to and back into darkness. Rid.
Rid, prone on the ground, forces herself to look up, and she sees on the ground Rowan, who she went through some harrowing shit with, and Zue. Somehow, pulling from somewhere, she finds the strength. She takes her finger in her hand and breaks it the way that Olga does. It snaps her back, and she gets to her feet, and she'll take 6 damage to do that.
In your head, you hear Olga, "No, Rid, what are you doing?" And you feel that surging pain sort of course through your body.
Can I reach into Rowan's bag and pull out one of his big fancy healing potions and feed it to him?
I will allow you to go ahead and pull it and feed it to Rowan.
And if I feed it to him, is that full healing or do I still have to roll it?
Because you're using your action, so it would be full heal per my rules.
So Rid tips this healing potion into your mouth and brings you back, and then with her hand shaking, she grabs you by the collar and says, "Get Zue back up."
I always hated those things. On it.
Are you doing anything else, Rid? You have half of your movement still.
Can I use the movement to get to Zue, like within 5 feet of Zue?
We'll say that you can get to Zue. Rowan, as you get up, Luna comes down to the floor and sort of looks up to you, trying to like flap her wings in your direction, sort of like out of excitement that you're up again. So with that, 5, what are you doing?
I'm going to burn 4 charges, and I'm going to attempt to banish Theranos.
What's the save on that?
Charisma save.
That is a 13.
He fails.
But he's going to use his last legendary resistance to succeed.
I'm still bound by these chains, and I'm just going to utter a prayer to Segojan and Baravan, and I'm going to try and flex and get as much space, and then using this staff again as a conduit, unleash an energy and try and open a hole above Theranos, sucking him up.
And as you do, you watch as it begins to attempt to take him, banish him from this plane. And as he sort of begins to seep into it, the runes on his body glow. As the one wing flaps hard, manages not to fly, but jump out of it and land. You can go ahead and make a strength saving throw.
That is a 17.
That just succeeds. So you are no longer restrained.
Seeing the banishment spell not work, 5 is going to just use the momentary distraction that Theranos has and just breaks the chains. The Amethyst Dragon is going to charge at Theranos, and he's going to make 2 rend attacks. I rolled a nat 20 and an 8. So that's the full damage. So 6 plus 4 plus 5. So that's 15 points of damage, piercing. And then the breath attack, he needs to make a dexterity saving throw.
12 plus 4, 16.
So he just makes it. So he takes 20 points of damage total.
So with that, escaping those chains and unleashing, using the Amethyst Dragon to your advantage, and is it moving, you said it moved towards, right? Because it needed to make an attack. It is now the Gloomstalker. The Gloomstalker is going to fly in the direction of the Amethyst Dragon.
As it passes through me, my Guardian of Faith is going to do its last charge, because it is getting within 10 feet of Luna. So can it make a dexterity saving throw for me, please?
That is a 14.
That fails. That is the full 20 damage of radiant damage. As Luna, upon my dead body, seeing me wake up, sees the dragon fly over and just like a comet just shoots up, penetrating right through it in just this burst of moonlight.
Cuts through the Gloomstalker like a laser, completely uncontrolled. As the Gloomstalker's arm flails off, the wing comes undone from its body, completely piercing every section, killing it in the process.
I knew you could do it.
All that remains is Fernos. With that, top of the round, Zue, make a death saving throw for me.
Nat 1.
That is 2 failed death savings throws. Rid, when you arrive to Zue, you swear you hear the sound of choking gargling of blood.
Rid, on her knees. No. Hey, you stay with me. You don't get to go fucking see Hades again yet.
It is now Fernos' turn. Fernos is going to cast Flare. As your Amethyst Dragon is sort of standing in front of Fernos, Fernos looks up to it. Its arms stretch out. And as it does, from the center of his chest, this beam of light, followed by another and another from his fingertips, from his eyes, from his mouth, as he lets out a roar. And the entire Amethyst Dragon is coated in a flare-like light. 22 points of radiant damage to the Amethyst Dragon.
They are still up, but flickering.
You look all around you now in this moment. You see all that you've been giving to this fight, yet Fernos still stands with one goal in mind, and that is to get the Thorn Beside from you. Rowan, your turn, with Raid on deck.
I use half my movement to stand up from being prone. I hobble over with as much as I can to the stone wall in the courtyard, and just hobbling over, almost throwing myself onto the stone wall just to keep me upright. I hold the lantern as far over to Zue as I can, and I'm going to cast Aura of Vitality. That is a 30-foot sphere centered on myself. With that, I will use the bonus action to give Zue 2d6 healing. Zue, that is 9 healing for you as the glow just gets brighter and warmer.
Zue, just before you come to, and your eyes begin to open, and you begin to see the vision in front of you of Rowan's lantern, standing right above you, Hades. And then as soon as you come to fully, he steps away, and he says, "Go on."
Seeing Zue come back to life in her arms, Rid immediately pulls them in for a kiss. And it's just like this desperate thing, this "I thought you were dead. I thought you died in my arms just now." And it's got all the things Rid is not capable of saying in it. And then Rid pulls back.
Zue is shocked at first, and before they even have a chance to react, Rid pulls away. Zue puts their hand on the back of Rid's head and puts their foreheads together, and is going to give Rid a bardic inspiration.
Rid, turning somehow a deeper shade of purple, holds out the small potion of greater healing that she had in her pocket and lifts it to Zue's lips and kind of nudges the bottom with her hand. "We can do this. Go get him." She's going to use her movement to go to the trees to the left, and then she's going to use her bonus action to hide. And that's my turn.
5.
Fully unrestrained, 5 in this moment is tired of seeing people take damage, and he's tired of this creature before him shrugging off his attacks and his magic. He is going to cast Polymorph.
Take that moment, 5, and you muster all the strength to turn this hellish creature into something you wouldn't bat an eye at. However, Theranos is divinely blessed, and he cannot change it to another form against his will. It is done being changed into something that it doesn't want to be.
He is going to use a bonus action to transform into a giant eagle, and he is going to fly out towards where Zue and Rowan are. And then the Amethyst Dragon is going to do its thing. Nat 1 on one attack, 18 on the second attack, 15 points of slashing damage, and it has to make a dex save.
17 plus 4, 21.
3 points of force damage.
All of you now sort of gathered. Rid, you hiding from the shadows, you take note as the dragon now is seemingly the only thing that is really just hammering down this strenuous amount of damage onto Theranos himself. He's still standing, but looking very hurt. With that, Zue.
Zue pushes himself up on the wall to get up and looks at Theranos and realizes there might not be a way to reason with him right now, and is going to hesitantly point their finger at him and cast Eldritch Blast. 27 to hit.
That hits.
17 force damage.
And as he looks to you, for a brief second, you can see his eyes flicker between the yellow demonic look to that of human, to that of childlike wonder, back to the yellow eyes.
Do I have the strength / movement to make it over the wall towards him with whatever movement I have left?
Rid, you watch a stumbling Zue makes their way towards Theranos and the Amethyst Dragon. It is now Theranos' turn. Theranos, I'll say because you're coming up behind, he doesn't necessarily know you, and he's going to unleash 2 radiant spears towards the dragon because it seems to be doing the most damage to him. 25 to hit and a 23 to hit. First one was an 8.
It is gone.
The spears come up on both hands and just with one swoop crosses it in the center of its body, and it bursts back into whatever form it materialized from. And there, crackling in energy as the spears go away, Theranos looks to you, Zue. And it is going to go ahead and move right on top of you. Rowan with Rid on deck.
Ooh, standing on the wall, the lantern outstretched. I'm just going to speak out loud, but try to pray to Selune. Please, I'm begging you, just show me what I'm capable of. Show my friends what they're capable of and what we can do. I promise we can get out of this. And I'm going to cast Bless at first level for all 3 of my friends. So that is an extra D4 for every single attack or saving throw. So that'll cancel out the aura. With the aura gone, I'm going to use my movement and run right beside Zue, shield up, ready to defend.
Rid
in Zue's head. Do I attack?
I think we just have to get him unconscious.
Got it. In her hand, Rid creates, from smoke and shadows, a dagger. And with her action, she's gonna throw this shadow blade. It's a dirty 20.
That hits.
Rid tosses out this shadow blade to the thing looming over Zue for 24 damage. 10 of that is psychic.
As all of you crowd behind Zue, Fernos looking right at you, at your eyes, Zue. And he raises his hand, and just before he manages to touch you, a blade pierces his neck, and he falls. You watch as his body, the red burning sensation, diminishes. His entire body was just radiating heat. You see from the distance, Kaimasora. No. And he sort of like stumbles his way over, and now that he leans down in front of the body of Fernos, you can see from behind Kaimasora also missing feathers, but the remains of what look like wings being hidden under his clothing. He seems unconscious. Kaimasora looks to you all, speechless. You guys have 1 round. What are you doing?
Zue is going to bend down and touch his face. Say, "We need you," and cast Healing Word.
Rowan just shield up, prepping a swing with the lantern.
Rid emerges from the shadows to stand at Zue's side, and she's also holding a spell.
And Zue, you walk up with the intention of just latching on to something. And just as you're about to place your hand on his head, you hear shifting of movement. As Fernos, his fist punches the ground and begins to ride himself up, standing, weakened. But it has spent too much time in darkness for it to be that easy. Top of the round, Zue, what are you doing?
You have to end this. Please.
I hesitantly am going to hug him anyways and cast Arms of Hadar. And I'm going to need a strength save.
14.
That does not make it. That's going to be 15 necrotic damage.
You watch as when you touch him, the shadows completely engulf his body. And he looks at you and he goes,
Joel, you tell me how I come back from this. You tell me how I please everyone. And I'll show you what this torment has been.
Zue is still holding on. You don't have to please anyone. You don't have to fall in line.
If only life were that fair.
When you change into something, it can become a new start for you. It's up to you whether it does or not.
And what if I don't want to change?
Then that's where I come in. And I walk up, swinging the lantern just with the momentum as I come down with a strike over the head. It's only a 15.
that hits. Its AC goes down.
6 bludgeoning damage?
Take your lantern, clock him. You now see as he sort of like holds himself on the tree and is panting heavily. Rid, with 5 on deck.
Bonus action, bring my shadow sword back into my hand, and I'm going to try to smack him with it again. 24 to hit.
Ooh, that hits.
8 psychic, and then 13 sneak attack. Rid's going to add 6 damage with Zue's Bardic Inspiration.
You take that moment just as Fernos is holding onto the tree trunk with the red leaves above him as they're falling down with the intensity of the arena. And he looks to you. And just as he tries to lunge and get himself up, you stick the blade in his chest. Blood continues now to pour down on top of the runes. He looks very hurt. Very hurt.
5, finish it.
5, seeing Theranos, looks at Zue.
Zue is fully turned away. They are not looking. They have tears running down their face and their fists are clenched. And you kind of see their shoulders hunch at the sounds of him being hit. But Zue is not turning around and they are not looking.
5 is going to cast Blight. Theranos needs to make a con save.
Ooh, that's a 13.
5, as he's striding forward, unleashes the spell and says, "Tell your master if you get a chance to see them again. You messed with the marked." That is 37 points of necrotic damage. All of the organic material that makes up 5's body, in its tiniest forms, stretches out into the ground beneath it, travels beneath the ground, and then latches on to the lower extremities and literally just sucks all the moisture and life out of Theranos.
As you begin to drain the life out of Fernos, the missing, shifts back into that boy.
No, please. I'm scared.
Shifts back to Ilionas.
5. No.
Turns back to Fernos.
I will end you!
Just as he coils his hand back, you watch as his entire legs give out. And he shifts back into that boy, and then shifts back into Ilionas. And Zue, you're turned around, but you hear,
Zue. Hey, look at me, Zue.
Zue turns around to face him.
you see Ilionas now, clothes ripped, and the symbol of the Arcanum, as soon as you turn around, as his body begins to now cool, fall into the ground, leaving just this mark on his chest. He looks to you and he goes,
I'm gonna be alright, Zue. I didn't know what hiding all of this would do. I'm so sorry I hurt you. Fear is all I had, Zue. I hope you can understand that.
Rowan, from the distance, you see walking in your direction, Selune, next to Hades. Ilionas looks to you and he tries to reach for you, Zue, but the strength doesn't allow him and his hand comes down to the ground.
Can I run to him?
Yeah.
I run to Ilionas and just hold him.
And as you hold him, he goes,
Oh, that's... that's nice.
Shifts back into the boy, who now embraces you and holds you close.
Thank you.
As at this moment, standing in front of you, Selune and Hades, Rowan. Rid, you can see Hades, and 5, you can see Hades, but none of you can see Selune. From behind you, Zue, Hades.
Come, child.
As now, the boy lets go of you, and the body of Fernos morphs again, and 2 almost divine entities rise from it. One of Sorene, one of Ilianas. Selune looks to you, Rowan, and she goes, "What would you have me do with the child?"
Guide him somewhere nice, please. He was just lost. Just like me. Treat him well.
The moon sets every dawn, hides away from it all, but emerges the next day.
He doesn't get a next day.
He might, in a different way. But someone this young might require some assistance. You watch as Hades walks up towards Ilianas.
It is time.
And Ilianas, this sort of spirit, turns back to Yuzue. "Can I do something? Can I say something?" And Hades looks at the horizon, comes back. "You've got some time." Ilianas sort of looks over to Yuzue and he leans down, now sort of like reinvigorated with energy, but in this dying form. And he takes your hand. "I'm glad you can see for yourself now, Zue. I'm glad you can see it. I think that is why I was so enamored with you. You and I are the same, but you made it out." The child looks to you, Rowan. "Where do I go?"
I reach out my hand to the child to see if he will take it.
As you go to reach for the hand, Selune stops you. This path to see the child through to the end is eternity, Rowan. Will you guide him?
I don't know if I can do that.
Very well. Here, come on. And you watch as Selune extends her hand out to the child. "I will find you someone that will accompany you on the greatest journey you've ever been on." And she looks over to Hades. And Hades looks to her, bewildered at the fact that she's even looking at him. "Me? You will do right by this child, do you hear me?" And Hades looks at the boy, and for the first time gets on his knee, stretches out his hands, and he goes, "I'm sorry, Sorene. I never got to say thank you." And Hades begins to whimper. "This is all my fault. Well, now we get to be together." And Hades looks at Ilianas, looks at you, Rowan, and he says to you, Rowan, "Is this what you want?"
I have to be here. I saw you do wrong once. Don't you dare do it again.
Anger turns into a softness as he gets up, stretches out his white porcelain hand to the boy, and the boy grabs it. He looks at Ilianas.
"I'll have to come back for you."
And Ilianas looks at Yuzue and he goes, "Or I can stay in some way." And Hades just kind of turns his head and begins to walk with the child. As they do, 5, you feel your staff sort of vibrate as the Thornbesite plucks itself from the staff and begins to rotate into space in front of you. Selune looks to you, Rowan, and she goes, "That is not meant to be here. That must return."
Then so it must.
For a brief second, 5, you see her standing there next to Rowan, and the gem shrink into a single absolution and vanish. Selune looks to you, Rowan. "I'm sorry you were put through all of that."
I'm still here, aren't I?
and so are they.
Thank you for helping us. I appreciate your assistance.
Selûne bows her head as Hades now is off in the distance, still walking with the boy. Selûne turns her head, lets out a single tear, and Ilinas sort of stands there looking at you, Zue, and he goes, well then, how about this? If you ever need me, just remember this, okay? Remember what I was. Can you do that for me?
Always. And Zui lets out a soft smile.
All right. Turns away from you and begins to sort of almost jog in the direction of Hades and Sorne. And there, Hades continues talking with the child, and when Ilina steps up, Hades looks to him and he grabs both of their hands, and like a cloud, they vanish. You look over Rowan and Selûne's gone. And there on the ground, the body, like ash, begins to burn away.
Rid drops her sword with a clatter and turns to Zue and gives them the tightest hug.
Zue hugs Rid back, leans their head on Rid's shoulder.
Just a reassuring nod for now.
5 nods back.
What are fables? What is it about certain stories with morals that affects us so? I guess that's perhaps up to the soul to discover. I do know that for this fable, the marked witnessed redemption, questioned purpose, and in so found endless possibilities. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. And remember, the Marked began their journey in a literal city of endless fog. And look at how far they went and will continue to go. That's a wrap.
So what you're telling me, Rowan, is it's just made out of chickpeas?
Yeah, it's this small hole-in-the-wall kind of place called Insomnia Falafel. I heard they're looking to expand soon, and damn is it good.
Falafel. 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 You're right. That is a weird word. Well, looking forward to seeing it. And your home.
You'll love it. I promise. We'll be there soon.
So, you're not going to work for the Arcanum. I'm not going to lead Elverath. What now?
Well, I was thinking of editing past stories and maybe writing some new ones. Would you want to write them together? I've never had recurring characters before.
I'm guessing we have plenty of adventures ahead. I'm still your favorite character, right?
Zue leans in as if almost to kiss Red's cheek, but instead grabs her hand. Are people sometimes purple?